A very warm welcome back to the channel. In today's aviation news recap, there's focus on an airline growing its fleet, the refurbishment of an aircraft, and unfortunately some aircraft groundings. Why not begin there with KLM Cityhopper storing Embraer E2 aircraft as it is struggling with issues on its engines, these produced by Pratt & Whitney, and affecting its real ability to operate a robust schedule. Worse still for KLM, their woes are not expected to ease up at the turn of the new year, with the company forecasting 2025 to be a very challenging one, with little to no improvement. Things are, though, expected to slowly develop in a positive trajectory by 2026. However, at that point, the issues will have really torn through the KLM Cityhopper operation. So what do they need to do for now? Try and stabilize as much as possible. Remember, the E2 is part of a new era for single-aisle flying right across our industry, and for KLM, it's offering them a tremendous amount of efficiency over previous gen aircraft. However, unfortunately, it has come with a basket case of challenges, this directing back to the engines. The E2 isn't the only next-gen aircraft that has arrived with a promise of being efficient, and while on paper has achieved that, has brought along many complexities. Pratt & Whitney engine problems extend to Airbus aircraft such as the A330neo family and the A220 with the geared turbofan crisis, taking no prisoners, whether you're in New Zealand or the United States. As a result of all of this, KLM is hardly the first and likely won't be the last to be in a similar boat to many other companies facing capacity constraints and being forced to ground aircraft because of these engine problems. Absolutely does this not make it necessarily any better on them, but they can at least seek comfort knowing they're not necessarily doing something wrong. CH Aviation led the reporting on the topic, citing the operator's managing director, who noted the E2s will be decommissioned, essentially to preserve their condition. The decommissioning will not impact the entire fleet, but certainly affect specific aircraft registrations, which are no doubt far from optimal for the company when considering how long the troubles are expected to rampage on. There's no point keeping these in service. One, for safety, and obviously two, if they're not up to the standard required, don't fly them. The Cityhopper fleet now includes 64 aircraft, with 18 delivered E2 jets. Data shows, however, that of the 18, 3 units are currently in storage. That's PHNXA, PHNXD, and PHNXE. The plane's parking does come hardly as a shock. They've been in storage, some of these, for quite some time now, and reporting has continued and commentary from KLM executives that this is a pretty big problem. But unfortunately, when you hear fresh talk of problems continuing well into 2025, well, alarm bells may start to ring, and you're just hoping that things can smoothen out sooner rather than later. Qantas is continuing to find a way to try and elevate customer satisfaction levels by announcing the revamp of its A330 cabin. The refurbishment will be a multi-million-dollar investment, but one Qantas believes is hugely essential to satisfy customers for the long term. Some of the major differences between the current cabin and the new one will be the all-new economy class seats that have been designed for extra comfort in mind. Qantas highlights the seats' connection to the airline's commitment to Project Sunrise flight as a huge talking point. These Project Sunrise flights are really for the long haul. 4K OLED entertainment screens will be installed with the latest generation user interface, the screens to be 20% larger than what is currently offered. Furthermore, in a bid to ensure that the carrier meets all the latest technology standards, USB-C fast charging will be installed on each aircraft and Bluetooth audio connectivity will be possible. Bluetooth, a big part of adding convenience. With it, passengers can use their own earphones to connect directly to the entertainment screen. Further changes throughout the cabin are set to take place with the implementation of new mood lighting and the full replacement of curtains and carpets. What is really interesting from all of this, though, is the emphasis placed on the upcoming A350-1000 ULR for Project Sunrise services. Why? Well, in a bid to really align the company with the product that they are putting out across international services, this A330-200 product is going to be the exact same, so it will be a preview of what's to come. Qantas will look to fly these A330s to Hong Kong, Singapore, and Tokyo, among other international markets. The three aforementioned were the ones listed in their release. The A330's eventual deployment to these markets will also coincide with the commitment to continue rolling out Wi-Fi across international destinations. Unfortunately, Qantas has been quite behind this when measured by, say, how its counterparts have been advancing, but it has stated that from early December, it'll look to implement fast and free Wi-Fi on its A330 fleet across more Asian routes. So when is this refurbishment happening? That will be the all-important question, I think, to come from this. Well, Qantas expects to commence refurbishing the first of 10 of these units in mid-2025, with work to actually be conducted in-house. That'll mean Brisbane's maintenance facility will take on the plane, with the first one arriving next year and returning to service by the end of the 2025 calendar year. Current estimates show that the refurbishment program will conclude by the end of 2026, in time for, conveniently, the arrival of another important aircraft, and one I've talked about quite a lot. That's the A350. Sticking with aircraft developments, and despite a very turbulent last 18 months, Air New Zealand is actually preparing for a pretty busy summer schedule, and to ensure that it is perfectly poised to meet high demand levels, it will look to draft in additional aircraft on a short-term lease to mitigate capacity limitations. The New Zealand Herald reports that much of the focus will be on serving domestic demand, with the airline preparing for, no other way to describe this, a pretty hectic Christmas. Based on the bookings that they have, they believe this will continue right throughout the summer holiday season. Away from focusing on just adding in the short term, Air New Zealand will also make changes to how it uses its aircraft in a bid to be more efficient. That'll largely come down to the utilization of its wide-body aircraft, which will look to operate 14 to 16 hours a day and limit the time spent on the ground. By adjusting overall aircraft usage, the airline believes it can operate with even fewer wide bodies than it once had prior to the pandemic, while still operating just as large of a network. Unfortunately, this means that the leasing market is where it will need to head for capacity. Air New Zealand is used to such a thing. In the last, say, decade, it's gone to this market many times. Not necessarily, I would say, always for the right reasons. The company arguably has been one of the most impacted in the region it calls home by related aircraft issues, whether it was 787 difficulties caused by the Rolls-Royce Trent 1000s, to now the Pratt & Whitney GTF engine crisis, which is forcing the grounding of many narrow-body jets, including that A320neo family. Air New Zealand went on to further say that it's also struggled to really reactivate planes that have been in long-term storage. Much of that focus will relate to the Boeing 777s, which the company has said is far from easy. They're not the only ones. Qantas revealed something similar with its fleet of A380s. While an aircraft it needed to reactivate, it cited that actually getting these planes back in the air has been a challenge unlike any other. For Air New Zealand, it's a positive that they're expecting a very busy summer schedule. However, they've still got much to navigate, and obviously if they didn't have these groundings, they would want to be using their own aircraft instead of the stresses associated with heading to the leasing market. That'll conclude today's recap. Any thoughts? Let me know down below in the comments. Take care, be safe, and I'll see you same place, same time tomorrow.
And we'll fly.